Auburn had their spring game this past Saturday. Final score, 24 for the offense, 24 for the defense. Ended up being a tie. Hugh said, I talked to the coordinators, thought about having a one play on the 3-yard line for the winner. They said, nope, you know, it was called a tie. It's a torrential downpour out here. Let's get into the locker room. So we got to talk about some of our takeaways from this game. I tweeted it out at my Twitter page, at JD Pickell, just because I want to shout it from the rooftops to everybody, to anybody that will listen during spring football. Spring football is not for making absolutes. It's for taking a temperature, getting a feel, getting a gauge for where your team's at, but it's not for making absolute definitive statements, okay? So we're going to take a little bit of a pulse from that spring game, from the A-Day, and give you some of our observations as it pertains to the Auburn football program. Now, one thing that we were all watching headed into this game, what does the quarterback room look like? One thing that I was watching pretty closely, what do the reps look like for the quarterback position? And they were divvied up equally, but Robbie Ashford was very evidently QB1, which is right in line with what we've heard all spring long from our Auburn On 3 site. Make sure you're locked in there. Auburn Live, they do a phenomenal job. But Robbie Ashford just looked the most comfortable. He led 2 scoring drives. Now, to be fair, the rain complemented his skill set more than it would have TJ Finley or Holden Garner. But just seeing him in the zone read game, you could tell he's a different beast at the quarterback position. And I know their offensive line looks better than it did a season ago, but I do believe that Robbie Ashford legs, those are the differentiating factor for him at the quarterback position. Had a touchdown run, had a couple of nice plays where he scrambled out of trouble. Like, he just looked the most comfortable in this offense, in the run-pass option. It complements what he does well. Now, we had one nice throw on a seam route down the middle of the field. That was impressive. But overall, it's hard to get a great gauge for what the other quarterbacks did, because it was like throwing a medicine ball out there, because the ball was waterlogged and you can't really get a grip on it. It's hard for the receivers to catch. But even so, even if it were just beautiful conditions, the way they divvied up the reps and the way that Robbie Ashford just looked the most comfortable in the offense tells me all that I need to know about him. I think he's your QB1. Now, Holden Garner also did some nice things, led a touchdown drive. TJ Finley had a couple of nice scrambles, even though it's not really his game, to be honest with you. I think right now, if I had to guess at it, I'd say Robbie Ashford's probably QB1. I think Holden Garner's probably QB2, and TJ Finley is not too far behind at QB3. Now, I could be wrong. I could be very wrong, but that's just the way that I would call it after watching the spring game. Now, Auburn fans, I got some more thoughts on this. You just had your spring game. It's the beginning of the Hugh era. We had him on the show like a couple of days ago. Make sure you're subscribed here. We don't want you to miss anything, all right, going on with Auburn football right here on the On3 YouTube channel, the Hard Count. Every single day, we're talking ball. So we appreciate y'all in advance for that. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at JD Pickell. Now, one more thought on the quarterback room before we move forward. I've said this before. I feel pretty confident that you can win with Robbie Ashford. I fully expect them to go into the portal and get somebody to compete to be your starting quarterback come fall camp. But even if whoever you bring in doesn't end up starting, or let's just get crazy. Let's say they don't bring in a transfer starting quarterback or a transfer quarterback to compete for that room. If Robbie Ashford is your starting quarterback, you can still win with him. Now, I would say your level of happiness around Robbie Ashford probably centers on your expectations. Like, if you expect Auburn to go out and win 10 games, to win 9 games, you're probably not overwhelmingly excited about the idea of Robbie Ashford. But if you're just looking for improvement, if you're looking for like 8 wins, I think Robbie Ashford can do that for you. He's a great athlete. He's got a good enough arm. I think this offense plays to his skill set. Like I've said before, I think Robbie Ashford can be a guy that you can be solid with. And again, that's just assuming he takes a solid step forward. What if he takes 2 solid steps forward? I think you can have a really good shot to win some games with Robbie Ashford. Happiness is based on your expectations as it pertains to number 9. Now, some other things we learned during that spring scrimmage. I think there's a tale of 2 lines of scrimmage. We'll start with the good news. The offensive line, they had an edge all day long. They were moving the pile. There was one run, I think it was 3rd and 4, and the offensive line picked up whoever the running back was and pushed them another 5 yards. Like, it was probably blocked for 2. Running back had some contact, pushed to 3. The offensive line carried them forward another like 3 or 4 yards. That's the kind of edge. That's the kind of pride that you want to see from your offensive line. They went in the portal, got themselves some dudes. It wasn't a perfect performance by any means, but based on what we saw from them, on a day where it's rainy and your footing probably isn't great and the defense knows you're going to run the football and you know you're going to run the football. So it's like, all right, you know what we're running. Meet me in the hole. Let's get after it. Like, that was the kind of day it was. And the Auburn offensive line answered the call to action. Should be encouraging because that is one of the things that you need to win in the SEC. Got to be able to be multifaceted on offense. And so they can run the football. Will they be able to throw the football? We'll keep a pulse on that as we go on throughout fall camp. But just to be able to run the ball and accentuate your best position group, which is your running back room, that's a really good sign. It's a really good jumping off point for SEC play for Auburn. Now, the bad news, the flip side of that, if the offensive line had a really good day, then the frustrating part is the defensive line didn't have a great day. It lost the point of attack more often than not. And that's the price of admission in the SEC. To the same token, what I just said about the O-line is true about the defensive line. To be able to win in the SEC, you have to at least be solid in the trenches. I'm not asking Auburn to be elite. They were subpar a year ago. You got to be at least a little bit better in the trenches. And credit to Hugh Freeze and that staff. They went out and got themselves some defensive linemen in the portal. Justin Rogers is a guy that I keep talking about on this show because I think he's going to be a player for you in Auburn, Alabama. Keldrick Falk had a good day. He's a freshman. He's raw. He had a good day. Hugh Freeze highlighted him in his postgame press conference as well. My issue with the Auburn defensive line, if it doesn't improve, is it just holds everything else back within this team. Like, if you improve massively on offense, it doesn't matter because teams can then just hand the ball off, take the air out of the ball, keep your offense off the field, and then we got issues. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case, but I'm just saying that's the potential hangup you'd like to avoid. Again, we're not making absolutes. I'm just keeping a pulse here. From what we saw during that spring football game, I think the Auburn defensive line, at least, had some issues. I think you have a chance to have a nice car. You got to have the tires to go with it, the tires being the defensive line. Now, in terms of a couple of standouts that we saw, Kayin Lee, it's a freshman corner, matched up well with all the big wide receivers, made a couple of big-time plays on the football, had a back shoulder fade. He defended well in the end zone, broke up another pass. He was guarding Nick Martinor. Like, he looked good, and he's only a freshman. He's been on campus for like a cup of coffee. He just figured out where classes are, and he's done really, really well. He was one of the MVPs of the game, according to our good people at Auburn Live. Cole Pinkston had him as a defensive MVP. And he's a freshman. He's only going to get better. That's saying something. I know it was rainy. I know it wasn't throwing the football kind of weather, but he was in position, and he made plays on the football routinely. They've talked about him a lot this spring. It's good to see that translate to the spring game. Now, Damari Alston, he was a guy. All day long. He didn't get a ton of carries, but he averaged 8 yards a carry when he did touch the rock. And Justin Hokanson from Auburn Live, he was talking to me during spring football when we were trying to give you some intel with what's going on behind closed doors. And he just said this, look, Jarquez Hunter is a dude. He is a absolute program guy. All right? My words, not his. But he was saying he's a guy now. And whenever he's on the field, whenever Damari Alston is on the field and Jarquez Hunter has to sub out, they don't have to do anything differently. And you saw that in the spring game. Runs well behind his pads. He's shifty in space. I'm excited about Damari Alston. Now, behind him, Sean Jackson, he looked good, man. He's like 5'9", 230, an absolute bowling ball with knives on him. Like, he gets downhill. He ran behind his pads. I was really impressed with him. And how much will Sean Jackson play, man? I don't know. Like, we'll see what happens with this running back room. But in the SEC, it is a black and blue kind of conference. You get beat up every single week. It's important to have some depth. And so to have Jarquez Hunter, Damari Alston, Sean Jackson, to have Beatty, like, they've got some guys that can make some things happen for you in that backfield. You feel really good about that position room, like I said. So Damari Alston and Sean Jackson having a good day. It's a good thing. To put it simply, it's a good thing for the good people on the Plains. So again, no absolutes here. The defensive line has room for improvement. Far be it for me to tell you that won't be a unit that gets rolling when they get to the fall. Expect them to be active in this second portal window. Hugh Freeze came on this show and told us, if you don't believe me, go ahead and check the interview out. Said we are open to anyone who is going to help Auburn football and fit our culture. So the pulse, I think, right now in Auburn, Alabama, improvement. What we saw from the spring game is improvement. I think it's going to be a more organized operation, have more of an identity than they did a year ago. I think they're going to be improved in a lot of facets. How quickly does that personnel meet what they need to win games. Because I think they have the right organization, like I just said, the structure's in place right now. How quickly do they get those guys to execute on the Plains? So we'll see. Probably the phrase of all the spring football. Hey, man, we'll see. But nonetheless, good ROI on your spring game for the Auburn Tigers. Keep it locked right here. Again, Auburn fans, this is your spot now. We talk ball here every single day. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.